Okay, welcome to the webinar, everybody. It looks like people are still streaming in, so let's give them a minute. But while we're letting everybody get on, let's just talk about what we're going to talk about today. And as you know, or hopefully you know by now, we've been doing a series of leaderships. Joe Guider and myself have been, and I'll introduce Joe here shortly. But Joe Guider and ourselves have been walking through. So far, we've completed two different modules that are critical to the frontline leadership success. The first one was the role of a supervisor, and if you haven't seen that webinar, I urge you to check it out. And then the second one we did was positive leadership and the value of that. And the feedback we're getting from a lot of folks is that was so impactful. And it's vital. It's vital to your frontline leadership to create that environment for success, really. So on today's, we're going to talk about listening skills and specifically active listening skills. And just so we can make sure that everybody can hear me, if you wouldn't mind, if you can hear me, type a 1 into the chat area. All right, it looks like we're good from that perspective. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't want to waste your time. We want to jump right in. So some of the things that we're going to cover today is the importance of listening skills, listening styles, the risk of incomplete listening, active and complete listening, guiding principles for effective listening, the importance of listening skills, and the path to effective listening. Now you might be saying, okay, so how does this apply to me? You're going to get some very good information on how impactful the listening skill process is to effective communication. And let's face it, all good leaders need to be effective communicators. So you're going to find that out. But more importantly, this is going to be good information for your call center agents. So take notes, because this is information that you can use to help them become better at supporting the customer. There's nothing worse than calling into somewhere to get something fixed, and you have to repeat or explain in great detail because the agent wasn't really listening, and I'm sure you all can relate. So first I'd like to welcome Joe Guider on the call. He is a member of the My Leadership Success Group, as well as Call Center Best Practices. He has over 25 years of professional business planning, technology, and project implementation. He has skills that include IT project management, business process reengineer, and training and development. And he has I've worked with Joe on many client engagements over the past few years, and he has been utilized to help drive results through leadership development for many of the clients. And you may all know me. I'm Greg Mears. I'm the senior consultant. I'm an efficiency expert. I've run large operations of both the BPO industry as well as many other operations. Consulted with Joe and as well as on some separate other projects to help improve efficiency and leadership skills. And I am the managing director of Call Center Best Practices and MyLeadershipSuccess.com. And I continue to consult and pick up leadership development and efficiency initiatives for my clients. So with that being said, welcome, Joe.
Nice to be here, Greg. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. So we're gonna jump right into it and let you get started, and then I'll jump into it a little bit later. Okay?
Very good.
All right.
I thought we'd start with a quote that I came across a while back. It's by the Anglo-Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1925. And in these few short words, I think he captures the challenge in making our communication effective. We all believe we do it well because we've been speaking and listening all of our lives, but we continue to be disappointed because what we speak or what we hear occasionally is not what we want the other person to recognize, or in fact, what we hear is not what the other person is really telling us about. So today's discussion really focuses on the listening portion of that dual part of our communications with each other. The importance of listening skills has been studied by the Ohio State University, and their research provides a distribution of the amount of time that is spent in the speaking and listening domains. And almost 50% of our time, as you can see from the pie chart, is spent listening. If we include reading as another form of absorption of information, we're close to 60%. The other 40% is made up of our speaking activities and of our writing activities. So most of our time clearly is spent listening to others, and that's critical in our understanding of how it's important in terms of our capturing the information that is being transmission. We all attend meetings, we write emails and read emails. We're told what to do, but the expectations are not always realized, and the transfer of information is not always successful. Our aim, obviously, is to try to improve that. The importance of listening skills is evident when we think about what the results are. It enriches the experience of communication and strengthens relationships. Again, in much of our leadership series, we can be speaking about our personal lives, our family lives, our interactions with friends and social engagements, but we're focusing in this series primarily on the business place. And to strengthen those relationships is one of the key elements that makes some businesses successful and others fall short. So listening, we suggest, is the underutilized power. Sophisticated listening enriches the experience, strengthens relationships by making us more keen observers of what is on the minds and through the words of others that communicate with us. Listening critically to evaluate the most valuable and trusted relationships is what our objective is. What are the risks of incomplete listening? Well, they seem to be many, and they take on these particular aspects. There's a loss in translation. Again, if we look at the workplace, a manager tells his group what the objectives are, and if it's not clear or fully understood, there's something that is not taken back to the workplace and not translated into real business productivity. Then people are beginning to ask, well, what did he or she really mean? And it creates an office like a Tower of Babel where people are talking in different languages with different explanations about what the real focus of the communication is. Necessarily, that creates a distance between the manager and the staff caused by ineffective communication. It impacts the drive towards core objectives because they're not fully understand and therefore cannot be fully committed to. It creates again that separation that becomes the manager not so much versus us, but and us, and not part of a more fully rounded team that's all pushing and working in the same direction. In the worst case scenario, it suggests that the manager is put at a greater distance and people lose confidence and credibility in the person who's supervising or leading them. And that, of course, results in stress, which takes its toll on productivity and success. So there are a couple of different listening styles, and which one do you think is most effective? Well, you may look at these, and if it's self-centered listening, it's people wanting to hear just what they want to hear. It's people saying yes, or I will, or I'll follow up on that, or you're doing a good job, and not really getting at the information that people need. Relationship listening is a step higher than that, where the person really does care about the communication from others and are trying to build relationships, but still not at the point where there's full trust and confidence in understanding the motivations and concerns of either a staff member or the staff itself. Visionary listening is, in a sense, the most effective because the person who's doing the listening is also probing for deeper meaning and understanding of what the mood and temperature and attitude of the group is. So clearly, visionary listening is the most effective and the one that requires the most effort. Active and complete listening techniques. What are some of the things that we can do to improve our listening? One is stop what you're doing and give the person your full attention. We can't fully focus on what another person is saying if we're distracted by phone calls or a video screen or other activities that may distract us from the person that we're sitting in front of and trying to have a conversation. So set aside the time and avoid all distractions and make the conversation and listening crisp and important with full attention. Use silence and do not complete the other person's sentences. It's not only polite, but it gives the person an opportunity to fully complete their thoughts. If someone is dominating the conversation or cutting the person off, it suggests strongly that there's no real effort or value in what the person is saying. Collect the facts on the issues at hand. If there's a dispute, for example, in the workplace, before there's a reaction or judgment or grading of any person's behavior, allow the time to collect all of the facts. In fact, one of the practices in good listening is to ask questions to make sure that you fully understand what the person is most importantly trying to tell you. And if we skip down to reflective questioning, it's to come closer to the person that we're listening to by confirming that what we heard and are putting in our own language is exactly what the person means. So statements like, let me see if I understand you, and then repeating either in the same words or more appropriately in different words what the person has expressed so that we give them a sense of confidence that we're focusing on the issues that are most important to them. And also, as we suggested before, clarifying with open-ended questions. Like, give me an example. Why are you upset? Why are you mad? Why do you think you're being picked on? And then we can address those specific pieces of data more competently and with greater professionalism and with greater results by doing so. Active and complete listening fosters two-way communications. And one of the key ways of doing that is using inquiry, using questions. It's really the opposite of telling, allowing the other person to broaden their conversation with us by asking them questions. So getting the person involved in the conversation, explaining it in different ways, giving examples, getting additional input, and building a person's confidence in the relationship with the communication effort by the manager, supervisor, or even other staff peer members. So what are some of the guiding principles that we suggested in the opening screen will get us to more effective listening? One is to remember that listening requires energy. Uh, think about it, even if you're watching TV and a phone call comes in, it's difficult to concentrate on both and hear the full import of what's being delivered through the television or through the phone call. So listening requires focus. And as we mentioned before with the activity of inquiry or asking questions, asking the appropriate questions to discover what the person is clearly saying. And again, that comes back to focus and digging for the right information. We should also listen or observe more than words, and that's body language and tone of voice. We can pick up clues from the person by the manner in which they're saying through hesitancy, through confidence, through emotion, through by the way they present themselves through body language. So we can pick up some clues and information from that aspect of the delivery. And finally, listen to yourself as well as to others. There's always an attempt to uh, improve by reviewing the way we handled a situation and listen to the way that we responded or even asked questions so that next time we're engaged in a similar activity, we can do it with better rehearsed phrases and comments and emotions and attitudes. So, what are the paths to dynamic listening? One is to value all team members. Again, the effort here is leadership and building trust with your staff as individuals and as team members. Uh, One way to do that, in fact, the requirement of doing that, is to portray an image where all team members are valuable. New ones and senior members, juniors and more experienced members, but all of them have a place and importance in both current affairs as well as talent development. Value questions as well as answers. We said it's important for the manager to ask questions to dig for more information so that when the manager is confronted with questions by the staff, value them and understand where it can lead in terms of providing more information or sensing the pulse of the people who are staff members and members of the team. And finally, value contributions more than title or position. And this really refers back now to feedback from team members, regardless of their title in the organization or department, and sort of gets to the point that, at least initially, no thoughts, no questions, no suggestions are out of bounds. It would be up to the manager to corral that information and focus it on the appropriate understanding and response to situations, but at the outset, value contributions from everyone. So what are the benefits of effective listening? Well, quite the opposite of all of the things that became the pitfalls of ineffective listening. One is that it'll show the staff that you care about what they have to say and that their thoughts matter. So they'll build a stronger relationship between the manager and even team members because now everyone will be on the same page or approach that with much more efficiency than before. And it's important to remember that when we listen, we learn. When we listen with focus, when we listen with purpose, when we listen with sincerity, there's a great deal that we can learn from others and about others, in addition about ourselves, through the comments, through the tone of voice, through the activities of our staff. So effective listening yields significant benefits for those who do it well.
So improving listening skills, you know, Joe, I appreciate you walking through that. It reminds me of a story about that happened in my career several years ago. I had been hired on with this outsourcer to come in and run the operations group. But what I didn't really know at the time was how bad the situation was. I went through the training as a CSR so I could learn, you know, the product and I could learn the, you know, everything that our frontline call center agents were doing with our customers. So when I graduated, basically the gentleman that was running it before me resigned, and so they said, oh, you know what, you're qualified to do this. We want you to run it. But what I found out very quickly was that we were 19 days into a pull notice, meaning the client was very unhappy with our performance, and we were on borrowed time. And if we didn't turn things around, we were going to lose that contract, which the contract at the time was about $360,000 a month. Turned out to be, which is another story, but it turned out to be $80 million a year. So quite substantial. What we did, and I'm not sure why we did this, but it just seemed the right thing to do. So we had absenteeism problems, we had attrition problems, we had performance problems, we had all these things going on. And so what we did is we had everybody in the on the call floor. You know, everybody was part of a team. So we had about 15 or 16 teams, about a total of about 250 employees. And excuse me. And so what we did is we had each team nominate a person that was going to come to a meeting, and it was going to be an ongoing meeting. And we ended up calling it Pride Teams, which is kind of corny, but it really stuck and worked. But it was Pride Team stands for people really involved in developing excellence. And basically what our gist was, come in, we're going to whiteboard all of our ideas, and we're going to ask questions, and we're going to talk about what's going wrong, what you think we need to do to fix it. And our job was just to document. When I say our job, I mean my job as the operations manager and my managers to document and discuss the feasibility of these, and not necessarily. So we wanted this to be very much a brainstorming process. So we were very particular of not criticizing the ideas, but we did get some ideas that we didn't necessarily have direct control over, like pay us more and we do better. But the feedback we got from these individuals, and so what they did is, so they were represented by the team. Their team told them all the stuff that they wanted to be brought up in this meeting. We whiteboarded everything. And then once we documented all that, we started a process of going about fixing it. So, and I think the key piece to this is our listening skills. We listened to what they had to say. We incorporated the idea. So not only did we make them feel positive about the whole process, we made them feel like they were part of the team, and what they were thinking and what they were saying mattered. And we acted on it, and we made sure that we communicated to everybody on the call floor the importance to that, the importance of what we're doing and the process. Well, I got to tell you something. Within a month, we turned around that whole operation to the point where we had 19% absenteeism on that first day that I worked, which was a Monday. To a month later, we were running about 2% absenteeism. It was crazy. And so the impact of listening skills is amazing. And I want to talk about how to go about improving those skills now. So let me ask you a question. When you think of a strong leader, what comes to mind? And if you want to go ahead and put your answer in the chat box. Oh, we're starting to get these in. Dynamic. Oh, we are getting some listening. Strong leader. Listens to people. Focuses on KPIs. Strong-willed. Focused. These are all. A lot of these are very important for leaders. But one of the interesting things is just the other day, I was reading an article in Harvard Business Review, and I grabbed a quote out of it that I thought was very impactful. I'm going to read it to you. Let's face it, strong leaders tend to be characterized by their strong opinions, decisive action, and take no prisoners attitude. These are important traits, but it's equally important for managers to stand down and listen up. Yet many leaders struggle to do this, in part because they've become more accustomed to speaking than listening. So how can you develop this muscle? Well, you need to establish a baseline. And what's interesting is I had a client that was awesome about 10 years ago. It was very collaborative and wanted to push, was really focusing on how to improve retention and customer satisfaction. So what we did is we added just one little question on the quality form. And the question was basically, did the CSR actively listen? Yes or no? And I know this is a bit subjective, but it was our first stab at it and approach. But what we found, once we started identifying that and grading that, we inherently saw our retention efforts. So customers would call in and have a product is an ongoing subscription-based product, health insurance, and they would call in and say, I don't need this anymore. I want to go ahead and cancel. And we would try to retain them by consultatively trying to point out the benefits and why it's beneficial for them to keep this policy. Well, once we put that component on a quality form, we saw that the agents did a better job up front of listening to the concerns of the customers and able to tailor a rebuttal and understand and kind of align the product's benefits to the customer's needs. So we saw a tremendous improvement there and a tremendous improvement in customer satisfaction. So, getting to the step one, self-assessment, you have to establish a baseline. And, Joe and I have been working in the consultant industry for a long time. Our first order of business is when we go in to a new project is we need to establish a baseline from looking at all the different components. Excuse me, I had a cough here. And once you establish a baseline, then you can identify and track improvement. So we have a module called listening skills. That one of the first things that we do is we create that baseline. We do a self-assessment. So your agents, if you're using this to help improve listening skills with the ultimate goal of improving customer satisfaction, retention, sales, or whatever component that you're tracking, whatever KPI you're tracking, you need to establish the baseline. So this self-assessment provides that, and that's in the module. It can be used to identify your strengths, identify your weaknesses, and establish your starting point. Step two is that you need to understand what is poor listening skills. And so in our module, we actually walk through case studies and provide details of the different types of listeners or the different types of poor listening skills. And it's interesting because, as I put myself through this module, I identified some of the things, where I was weak in and I need to improve. So you need to understand your poor listening skills, which is step two. And then step three, what are the good listening habits? So now we know, now we know where we stand, our baseline. Now we know what makes for poor listening. So let's focus now on what we can do to improve good listening habits. And the active listening module includes all this within it. So to improve listening skills, there's really two big important components to it. There's the listening skills participant guide, which is used for, say you're training your frontline leaders, your supervisors or team leads on how to become a good leader. And then there's a facilitator guide for whomever you designate to help train. So it might be the training department within your organization. It might be QA. It might be you. It might be one of the other supervisors to help promote their leadership skills. But these two components help you deliver this module. And so it has exercises and it has kind of a walk through a process. And the facilitator's piece provides the trainer with the ability to walk everybody through this process. So it comes in handy. This is a model that we run all of our training modules through, or we formulate all of our training modules in this process. So there's always a participant guide and there's always a facilitator guide. So improved listening skills, there's different components. What makes effective listening skills, good listening habits, tips for effective listening, and characteristics of effective listening. These are all positive examples of how to improve listening skills within this module. So, what's improving results worth to you? I know the listening skills process doesn't come across as being very sexy, or meat and potatoes like coaching or setting goals and expectations. But really, this is the beginning of effective leadership and a part of the communication process. And being an effective communicator is critical to delivering positive results. So I want you to remember this. This is a training module that improves your leaders, but also can improve your call center agents, which would help you improve any KPI that you're looking at, but most importantly, the customer experience. We do have a 60-day try it out So if you decide that this is something you want to give it a try and hand off to your training department, for instance, you have 60 days to give it a try. But if for some reason it doesn't work out and you want a refund, then go ahead. So we wanted to add a bonus to this to make it easy to get you started. It's called the Fast Start webinar. And you're invited to roll up your sleeves. It's a meeting to jumpstart um, the positive leadership, the role of the supervisor, as it applies to the active listening skills to apply. If you already are the owner of the role of the supervisor and the positive leadership, then this is a perfect webinar, Fast Start webinar, to help you show you how to use the active listening skills to drive performance. So, we're looking at strategies for presentation, assessing positive results, questions and answers. So let's review what's all included. So we've got the listening skills participant guide, the listening skills facilitator guide. You can use this to develop your leadership team, or you can use it to develop your frontline, your employees that are talking to your customers day in and day out. You get a 60-day money-back guarantee, and we haven't really covered this yet, but you're going to get a special price for attending this webinar. And as a bonus, you'll get the Fast Start webinar to help you, to provide you with tips, and Joe and I will walk you through, how to present, how to derive positive results from this, and walk you through any questions and answers you had. So, you might be asking, okay, what's the price to this? This sounds great, but is it within something that our organization can take on? So when we originally did it, we've been building these different modules, and we've been pricing them based on the level of value that we think. But we wanted to give you a really good deal. So we didn't want to charge you $147. We thought about $97, but we didn't want to charge you $97 either. And then we came up with $60. You know what? This is fair. This is $67. Well, that's the price that if you don't attend the webinar, that's the price that the active listening skill module goes for. But because you're on this webinar, we wanted to offer you a special $47, and we think that's a tremendous value and opportunity. And remember, you have a 60-day risk-free try. So, to get this for $47, test it out on your agents and see the results. Test it on your leadership team and see the results. And you can accomplish this within 60 days and find out, this is something that our organization needs to run everybody through. So if you're interested, you should see a link pop up. Well, actually, there's a link below here, Listening Skills Webinar, but if you go to callcenterbestpractices.com/listen-skills-webinar, you can grab the special price. This is a special price only for being on this webinar. And you should see in the chat window, I think there should be a button that dropped down for you to go ahead and just click that. That will take you directly to it so you can purchase that. So, Joe walked through the value of listening skills, talked about, poor listening skills, the benefits of positive listening skills. So what questions do you have at this moment? I'm going to throw that out there, and if you have any questions, please let us know. Okay. Oh, we're starting to get some questions. Steve asks, we've been talking about listening skills and the importance of developing, but what delivery of that message, let me redo this. We've been talking about listening skills and the importance of developing the listening skills, but what delivery of that message is the leader? Does that make sense?
It may, and it actually is a pretty good example of communication and trying to understand the intent of someone's question. I think that, again, if we were in a meeting, I'd ask some questions or probe to fully understand it. But my interpretation is that he's asking both about the skills itself as it applies to leaders as well as peers. And there may be even an element of of communication or speaking in there as well. I think your example, Greg, of the situation where you went into an organization that was having serious problems, absenteeism and productivity, was a particularly good one. And I would highlight and underscore the importance of uh, being receptive to listening to the staff, even as they talked about things that they were troubled about in the organization that they were working. They were the ones who identified the problems. So sometimes listening gets us quicker to the areas that need to be solved than if we went at it alone and went through with a magnifying glass, so to speak, and said, I'm going to find out what's wrong in here. It may be wise in many cases to just simply ask.
Good deal. Good deal. So Brenda asked a question. I am sincere about improving my listening skills, but how do others on board this important skill?
Well, again, I think that comes back to the universality of the listening skill itself, being able to focus and understand and probe and get to the heart of the matter. We have been focusing on managers as leaders in part of the leadership series, but this clearly can be an activity, that is to say, the materials that improve listening skills, something that can be shared and encouraged among staff itself. So let's again take call center as an example. These are the folks who represent the voice and image of our companies. And if they become better listeners and can accommodate the needs of the people who are calling in a more efficient and productive manner, it's going to bolster the image and credibility and pleasure that customers have dealing with their companies. So, can this be used with staff as well as supervisors and leaders? The answer is certainly, and we highly recommend it.
Good deal. Okay. Kristen asked, why is it important to do the listen and self-assessment when we are trying to improve others? You want me to handle that one?
Sure.
Well, as I mentioned earlier in our discussion here, we Joe and I, and I would say probably most consultants, when they go into a new operation and look at it, they want to do you want to do a baseline. You want to find out what the current starting point is, so where so you can help identify your strengths, your weaknesses, and then you can formulate a plan to make improvements. So that's why we added the self-assessment piece into this module, because it's a good indicator for the individual participant of this training module to understand what their starting point is, what they're doing well, or from strengths perspective, what are the weaknesses, and how do we develop a plan to close that gap. So and this process has worked well in pretty much every operations that we've gone into. Bill asked a question: how has this listening been used with success in other operations? I can say that Joe and I have developed these modules. We have quite a few modules that help frontline leadership. This particular module not only helps frontline leadership, but it also helps the employees that are talking to your customers. And so we always, when we perform leadership development and improvement in the different operations, we always utilize this module. This is one of about 12 to 15 modules that we use to kind of get everybody on the same, well, not kind of, but we definitely, to get everybody on the same page and developing the critical skills that they need to help drive performance and take their operations, quite frankly, to the next level. And Miranda asks, do we have the opportunity to brand the modules with our own company logo? Yes, you do. As you go through the checkout, there's an opportunity to pick up the baseline, which, by the way, it's in PowerPoint, and you can easily modify this and customize it so you're delivering this material from your brand in this material from your company standpoint. So that's all the questions. Any parting words from you, Joe?
Uh, Only to say again that I think this, while it may not have the, as you say, the sizzle of other components or topics, I think it's, as we suggested in one of the slides, underutilized skill, underutilized power. By improving listening skills, we can become much more effective in business as well as in our personal lives. So I fully endorse any opportunity for people and organizations to contemplate using this particular package and improving listening skills.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, the thing is, if there's a tool or resource that helps improve results, and this active listening skills definitely has a proven track record because we've used it with success uh, in a number of organizations, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a call center. It doesn't matter what type of operations it is. If you have people that are talking to other people, then this is a great module. So good stuff. I just want to thank everybody for spending time. Just on a final note, uh, for anybody that's on this webinar, I will send out the slides to you through email, so you'll have a copy of those, and you can refer to those. But hopefully you take advantage of this special offer and go ahead and get the active listening skills modules, both the participant guide and the facilitator guide. So again, thank you for your time. I hope you found value from this. And look out, we're going to have another webinar coming soon with another component of communication. So with that being said, thank you all, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Bye.